Probably all aware when Dr. Gray announced that she was leaving for another school district in the Indianapolis area. I was very fortunate to be able to assume the role as superintendent, and couldn't be more excited about being in this role and with you this evening to kind of talk about the process, the reason why. I think what we've discovered and what we've realized in talking with numerous families and staff members are the reasons why the district would take on redistricting. Believe me, as a first-year superintendent, it's not necessarily something that through my education that they said, yeah, first-year superintendent, redistrict. See how that works for you, you know. But I hope that you can at least leave here this evening with an understanding of the purpose and the why behind why we're doing this and why we're taking on this endeavor. Other members of our team, we have with us school board member Tim Haynes, and Tim is in the back. And Tim, if you can just give them a little wave so they can see who you are back there. So appreciate Tim being here this evening as a representative of DeKalb County School Board. Lori Vaughn, our assistant superintendent, and she took my position, so she's new to DeKalb Central, but we love having Lori here, and she's going to be capturing notes, questions, thoughts, comments that you have as we have time at the end to kind of get feedback from you. We want to make sure that we capture all of that information and that we can get back to folks and that we can update anything that's on our website. And I will, just a little plug for the website, the elementary schools and the DeKalb Central, the district website does have a direct link to everything redistricting for balancing to rebalance. We are posting everything, any updates to the FAQs, we posted the video from our meeting from Country Meadow for people who want to make it. Essentially, we're talking, my slideshow hasn't changed at all from Monday, but because of questions and feedback that we received from the numerous parents and grandparents and the school personnel who are in attendance, we have updated our FAQ. So it's been a good process, I've had good dialogue, good discussion, and we've been able to take a lot of what's been provided to us from the community and really put it towards this process, and hopefully to make it as smooth of a process as possible, knowing that there will be some changes to schools for some of our students and the schools they attend in the fall. Other members of our team, Mr. Caleb Miner is here. He's the principal from Country Meadow Elementary. Mr. Juan Settler, and a big thanks for hosting this evening. Mr. Juan Settler, principal here at Waterloo Elementary. Our district curriculum and instructional director, this is Julia Tipton, and former principal of McKinney Harrison Elementary, so you might see some familiar faces out there. Our director of human resources, Wendy Pettis. Our principal from Watson Elementary, Pam Shoemaker. I see some Watson parents here, that's good. Carrie Alday is here representing McKinney Harrison Elementary School. And Steve Snyder is our chief financial officer. He's our money guy, and so he keeps us straight and narrow on everything budget related. So I brought the whole team, so if there are questions, I'm hoping that I can rely on them, and if you have individual questions that you have, you could target maybe individuals if you have questions about other schools. All four of our elementary principals are in attendance tonight, so if there may be a chance for a change in placement for your child, you can at least talk to the elementary principal and ask any kind of question, or set up another time to talk to them and kind of pick their brain a little bit on what their school has to offer for your child. So I'm going to go through a series of slides, and there's not a lot of information that we'll present. If you've been on the website, a video message, parent letter that I sent home, really explains a lot, but this allows for another opportunity to kind of ask more probing questions, to allow you an opportunity to provide feedback, and we'll get you the answers. If I can't provide an answer to you tonight, we'll make sure that we capture it in the notes and that we can follow up with future meetings. We have a meeting scheduled for Monday at J.R. Watson, so I might see some of you back at Watson for that meeting. And then we've also, we have our 4th community meeting at McKinney Harrison Elementary next Wednesday. So there may be more meetings that we schedule along the way. So let's take a look at the first slide, which helps to identify the why or the purpose. If you viewed the video message, read the letter, I referenced back to 2009. And I've been in the district a lot longer than that. So, but I think 2009 really represents a benchmark that really affected a lot of people. That it affected the schools for sure, and it may have affected a lot of you or people that you know. When the recession hit, many manufacturing jobs left DeKalb County, Auburn area, and elsewhere, all across the state, all across the country. This graph is very simple. This graph represents our K-12 enrollment from 2009 school year until present day. And so as you can see, in the state of Indiana, and like many states, students equal funding. So there's a certain dollar amount that's tied to each student that's enrolled in your district. And Indianapolis controls that. And Mr. Snyder, if you put a rough estimate on
roughly $6,500.
$6,500 per student. When you hear about educational funding and what schools get, it's not the same for every school. Nope. It varies greatly across the state. And if you follow the news, you hear a lot of the debate, the discussions that take place, why some districts get a lot more and why other districts get a lot less. I would say we're somewhere in the middle. Yep. In that range. So as you can see, we've had it. When we had families leaving, obviously we had students leaving. And so you can see over the course from 09 to 16, accounts for about 427 students that we were down as of the fall of 2016. Now, we do a lot of forecasting for enrollment. Jerry McKibben and his firm, as a demographer, every 5 years they'll do a demographic study for us as a district. They'll look at a lot of the different things that are happening in the economy. They'll look at housing rates, they'll look at costs, they'll look at just anything and everything you can imagine that deals with why people move where they do and what type of growth or decline that you can expect as a school district for student enrollment. So we've worked with Jerry as a district for many years. The school board has granted us permission over the years to have him come back every 5 years or so, check his numbers from the last demographic study, and then provide us an update. No one could see 09 coming, and so when we did our 2010 study, and then again updated in 2015, that decline, he was able to pick it up then in the 2015 study to show that just gradual decline because of people moving out of DeKalb County. And I think if you looked at DeKalb County statistics and other counties like us around the state, many counties lost population. People were just moving where there was going to be work. From our demographic studies, we're encouraged. These graphs are a little bit lower, but we're starting, we believe that we're at the bottom and we're leveling off and we're going to start seeing an upturn. We have opportunity for growth. And so down 427 students, if you multiply that by the amount you receive per student, compound that over time, budget issues we've had a lot of budget issues over the course of that time, and we've had to tighten the belt, and that was a good process. When 2009 hit, I think everyone had to step back, and maybe you in your household had to kind of step back and reevaluate everything and say, okay, where can we tighten the belt? Where can we cut? Do we have any fluff? Do we have any expenditures that are not necessary for programming, for staffing? So we did that. And every year since 2009, we've had some level of cuts that we've had to make as a district, and while always keeping student programming and staffing in mind. So some of the things you might be familiar with, we've looked at how can we utilize energy better. And so the district, I don't know, about 10 years ago or so, we entered into some energy efficiencies, and I tell you, teachers are really mindful and kids are really mindful of turning off lights and things like when you think about a district our size, those pennies, that cost avoidance really starts adding up. A recent example of that, we're considering what does solar energy look like, and it sounds kind of crazy, but more and more schools are turning towards solar and finding opportunities to save thousands of dollars. So as a district, we'll continue to look for those opportunities to help save money. So what does that, how does that play into the decision for redistricting? Over the course of time, and I'm not going to tell you that it was since '09, goes back even further, the district hasn't redistricted in many, many years. And not to say that there's a certain timetable that exists that says, okay, as a district, you should redistrict now. And then 10 years later, do it again. I think every district is different. The last time there was any real movement of students is when Country Meadow was built in 1997, and Fairfield and Ashley Elementaries were closed. And there was some movement of students then. But if you take it to the next slide, Mr. Wansettler. The current map, I'll just show this briefly, and then I'll show you the imbalance that has been created over time in our elementary schools, okay? So I hope that you've had an opportunity to get online or to take a look at the district map and the current situation in our elementary, our borders. And so the blue area here is our current Country Meadow. Green is Waterloo. The orange area here, we call this the Panhandle, for lack of a better term. We have a slice here in Auburn. This is primarily West Edge Trailer Park here, Mobile Home Park. Watson is the smallest geographically speaking, but has the largest population. And then this purple or burgundy color here makes up McKinney-Harrison Elementary. And so those boundaries have existed for as long as I can remember. There simply hasn't been any adjustments to those in a long time. So as a result of these boundaries where they're at now, if we go to the next slide, the purpose of why we're looking at redistricting and trying to help balance our 4 elementary schools. And so on this slide, you will see listed our 4 elementary schools. We explored a lot of different options. We looked at possibly closing an elementary school. What would, maybe a more difficult decision to enter into is actually closing a school over redistricting. But we looked at what would it look like if we closed a school. We've lost students, enrollment's been down over the years. We looked at closing a building. Quite frankly, regardless of any building that you would close one of the smaller buildings. You would have capacity issues at the other 3 buildings, and you'd possibly have to enter into a construction project, which would cost the district taxpayers more money. And then there would be no opportunity for growth whatsoever. So out-of-district transfers would have to be looked at. And like I mentioned before on the graph that showed the enrollment, we believe, and based on some of the demographic studies that we've had Jerry do for us, we believe we're at the bottom. We actually did not lose enrollment for the first time since 2009 in the fall of 2016. So all indicators are, hopefully that's the trough, and we'll start seeing that number trend back up. So when meeting with Jerry McGibbon from McGibbon Demographics, we gave him 2 tasks. We said, you're the expert here. You work in this field. This is what you do. You do this across Indiana, across the country. You help districts explore possibilities of creating balance or shifting students. We want you to take a look at 2 things for us. We want you to take a look at our current enrollment numbers, and those are the first number. We have 2 larger elementary schools, and we have 2 smaller elementary schools. And so we asked him to take a look at the current enrollment numbers and to see what he could do, looking at our current boundaries, and what he could do to help create more of a balance throughout our elementary schools. Not that Waterloo would have the same number of students as Watson or McKinney, Watson and McKinney were built to handle more students. Country Meadow and Waterloo were built to handle fewer students. So, but what can we do to create balance between those two schools? The second, and you can see the difference in the numbers there. That creates issues, especially when you have limited resources, when you're making cuts, not wanting to affect student programming or staffing. When you have 100 more students in one school than another, equal amount of resources, it starts putting a strain on the resources that you have. Waterloo and Country Meadow, you can see the enrollment numbers for the two schools. 320 students at Waterloo includes 96 of our preschool students, our four-year-old preschool students. And those students receive no state funding. Preschool, four-year-old preschool started here 3 years ago. I think this is the third year. Dr. Drake, former superintendent, worked to provide an opportunity for four-year-olds who would otherwise not have an opportunity to attend preschool. We chose Waterloo kind of as a central location for the district to house that. It's been very well received. We've had many parents want to send their children to our preschool program. Many that want to pay to send their students. Preschool is a program that we maintain. It is for students who would otherwise not attend preschool for financial reasons. Parents can't afford it. We know that it benefits those kids, and it also benefits us in the school system because we can assist students who have needs earlier in their lives and get those needs addressed, and possibly provide interventions that help build success in the future. So when you look at these numbers, you have to take 96 out of that 320, so it kind of shows you where we're at there. I'll talk a little bit more about preschool. We are expanding our four-year-old preschool to all four of our elementary schools. We've received a lot of communication from parents' interest in putting those four-year-old preschool classrooms in each of the four elementary schools. A lot of our little kiddos ride the bus for a long period of time, so you can think all the way down from the Allen County line on a bus, multiple stops. That's a long ride for a four-year-old. That's one of the considerations, but also knowing that it would benefit our families to have those preschool classrooms in each of the four elementary schools. But that's purely funded through private donations. The James Foundation, they've been wonderful helping us support that. We have other grant monies and other private donations that come in, but that's what makes it all tick. We don't use taxpayer money for that purpose. The other consideration we wanted Jerry to look at, first and foremost, was the balancing. But the second number here that you see, that's our free reduced lunch rate in each one of our buildings. These figures are a little bit lower than what they've been in the past few years. When 2009 hit, we had numbers up in the 60% range, and even one of our, Waterloo, was in, I think, 87% at one time. So seems like maybe the economy has picked up a little bit. Seems like things are picking up based on the free reduced lunch rate here. We asked if you could consider looking at balancing from a socioeconomic standpoint too, because that also helps with the resources that we have to reach those students. Typically, students who come to us from a poverty situation tend to need more resources to be able to build that success later in life. So those are the two things that we asked Jerry to do for us. Hit the next slide, and again, if you have questions, please hang on to those. If you could, we'll address any and all at the end, try to explain everything out. Again, kind of just rephrasing the rationale behind it, being able to more efficiently use I call it precious resources that we have. We have X number of dollars that we can spend to ensure that we're providing the highest quality education that we can for your students. And so maintaining student programming, maintaining the appropriate staff. And that's not just teachers, that's staff, that's paraprofessionals and food service and bus drivers, and the list goes on, the staff that it takes to support the educational process. One of the rationales that I didn't mention up to this point was classroom sizes. Because of the imbalance that we've created, we have classroom sizes around the district that have 18 students in a class up to 31, and then all points in between. And a great question came up at Country Meadow. Someone went to the Department of Ed website, and you can find information about classroom size or the teacher-student ratio. And the information was shared, and the student-teacher ratio is much lower than these numbers would have indicated. And what the DOE fails to mention in what they post is that they consider not just teachers in that ratio, but all certified staff members. So what we look at for classroom size are the classroom teachers and how many students they have, not counting the guidance counselor, not counting any academic coaches we have, or the school's principal, who are also certified members, but they don't have standalone classes. So when you factor those individuals out of the equation, the classroom sizes then bump up between 18 and 31, depending on the grade level, depending on the school. So because of that, I went back, as the question came up, well, what are the classroom sizes in your elementary schools? That's a great question. I couldn't answer it. The only thing I could say, between 18 and 31. So on the FAQ, I just updated today, so you can reference back to that. I went ahead and put the averages for each of the elementary schools by grade level, so that you can see the disparity or just how much of a difference there is. And I think one grade level, I think 5th grade right now, there was only a disparity of 3 students. That's pretty good. I think we averaged 24 to 27 students per class in the 5th grade. All other grade levels is kind of what you see here. They're kind of all over the place. So we're looking to bring about more balance. Am I going to guarantee that through this process we'll have every classroom 24 students per class? No, can't guarantee that at all. But I'm hoping to get it closer. I don't want you to leave here today thinking that, wow, my son's in a class of 31 kids. Boy, that's terrible. I'll tell you that we have phenomenal teachers. And it doesn't matter if there's 18, 25, 31, I'd even tell you 40, they're going to get the job done because they're going to do whatever it takes to reach the needs of those students. So we don't like getting, personally I don't like getting over 30 at any grade level. Some of you are sitting there knowing 30 is way too many. Obviously, the younger the student, we want to keep those class sizes much smaller than 30. Standing here in front of all of you today, I can tell you it's not that way in each of our elementary schools right now. So, updated some information on the FAQ regarding class size. We do have the capability of expanding our 4-year-old preschool. That is a plus. That's meeting the needs of a lot of families, of a lot of students. And if we have spots available, we'll fill every spot. If parents want to pay to send their child to our preschool, that's certainly an option. But first and foremost, we are trying to capture those students who do not otherwise have an opportunity for that experience. One thing I haven't mentioned up to this point is our transportation. The way that our elementary boundaries, our attendance zones are set up, there's a lot of overlap. We have Watson buses driving through McKinney District. We have McKinney buses driving through Watson's District. We have Watson buses driving through Country Meadow. This process will also will give us an opportunity for a more efficient use of our transportation services. And that equals dollars. That equals dollars that ends up back in our general fund. So that's important for us to take a look at. And you can look at both options on the website, and you can kind of see maybe which option might make more sense from a transportation perspective. Not that that's the only perspective we're looking at, it's one of the perspectives that we want to take a look at. Transportation costs, they go up all the time. Another example, we've added propane buses to our fleet. I think we have 8 propane buses. It's saving the district money, and we're able to take funds and put that into our rainy days. It ends up getting to our general fund in some way, shape, or form. So constantly looking for ways to do things better without impacting student programming and staffing. All right. Many of you are probably aware sitting here today whether or not there's a potential an effect on your family. And I just want you to know that if we were affecting 300 students or if we were affecting one student, you know, the impact is the same for us as a district. We want to make sure it's not something that we take lightly. It's not something that we set out to say, hey, we're going to redistrict, and we don't care, you know, that we're going to upset, you know, the apple cart for many of our families. It's not what we want to do. It's the unfortunate side effect of having to do something to make a tough decision for what's better for the district as a whole in moving forward for what we want to do in the future. So I know many of you are sitting there going, you know, I don't want my child to go to X school and I want to stay where I'm at. I get that. I'm willing to listen to each and every one of you and you know, yell at me. That's what I'm here for. I've gotten some emails in all caps, so I feel like I've already been yelled at. But it's been okay. That's part of the job, so we can do that. Many of you know that it is currently our kindergarten through third grade students that may be affected by this process. You also know if they're not yet enrolled in preschool or kindergarten, they could be affected. The one where I'm getting the biggest interest and the greatest amount of feedback is the one dealing with interdistrict and out-of-district transfer requests. And so there will be a process for that. Can I list you, can I give you the list of what that's going to be for inter and out-of-district? I can't give that to you right now because we added something to the list after the Country Meadow meeting in Lord. We're getting great feedback from parents, and so I'm not prepared to stand before you today with a list saying, you know, interdistrict process. We're going to look at these students first with this situation, these students second, and these students third. That will be available to you as soon as we're able to make an informed decision and share that out with you. All right. So I know. Child care is something that weighs heavily on parents' minds, knowing that they have adequate child care and where a student is dropped off by the bus, and sometimes a lot of our inter-district transfer requests have been approved in the past because of child care. I can tell you that child care will still be on that list to be considered, and you know that is at the parent. You know, transportation won't happen from the district side of it. But we will look a little closer at and scrutinize a little bit child care. Can we verify that some way? All right, because what we're finding out is that there are a lot of addresses put down for child care. I'm not sure we can necessarily verify that the address is actually used for child care, or if the address just happens to exist in the attendance zone where someone wants to attend school. So we have to do our due diligence to make sure that we're following through and following up with all that, and we will provide all that information to you as soon as we have it ready for you. And obviously we know, regardless, even the kids that aren't changing schools, it's going to impact the school. Every one of our elementary schools is going to feel an impact. But I also know that each of our schools, I think they're excellent. I think they do a phenomenal job. I think we have great teachers across this district and staff members. So I feel very confident that students are going to thrive and do well, and they'll adjust. I do believe that, and I keep telling myself, look 2 weeks into next school year, and everything will be great. You know, all students are going to have new teachers next year. All students that go on to that next grade level will have a new teacher. It just may not be in the building where they're currently at, and I know that's the hard part. I get that. We're going to help. We're going to help parents get through that process, and I'm sure some of you will let me know how you feel about that. And, you know, that's what I'm here for. So we will help you through that process, Mr. Homesteader. So things to consider for next steps and things that we're kind of working on. And again, we will keep updating the information on the website. The FAQs are important. If you've looked at them once already, go back and check them again. I put the date for the last update so you can see when I've updated them. And then you'll know, okay, something's been added, so you can go back and look through those. The district maps are a starting point. So the 2 maps that Jerry provided to us, in his professional opinion, will help us get closer to what we're looking for. And full disclosure, he doesn't believe that the socioeconomic status, remember I told you we're looking at enrollment and the free reduced lunch rate as kind of two things we wanted Jerry to really take a close look at for the two options. He's going to get us closer to the balance of enrollment, but maybe not necessarily the free and reduced lunch just because of the way the population in the district is spread out. So he would have to do some really creative carving out to balance the free reduced lunch rate, and then we would lose maybe the benefit of more efficient use of transportation, if that makes sense. So I think that's what you'll notice on option A and B. You'll notice that transportation flows a little bit more efficiently on one of those maps than the other. The enrollment process, many of you who have been with DeKalb Central know that we have an online enrollment process, so we're working on what that process will look like this year. It will be online. And through that process, if your child will be an interdistrict or out-of-district transfer, when you go through that process, you'll fill out the application. We're asking all parents who have children that they're requesting an interdistrict or out-of-district transfer request to apply again this year. And what we envision will happen once we get through our community feedback meetings, we'll be able to provide the information on when that will start, when that window will open up. We'll provide a deadline for parents to say, be sure to online enroll your child, whether they're interdistrict, out of district, attending the school where they live, get in there. We'll set a deadline, and then up to that, when that deadline hits, that's when I'll start looking at interdistrict and out of district transfers and start approving them. Anyone that enrolls after that, they'll be taken in the order in which they enroll. That's what we're looking at right now. Try to be as fair as we can possibly be, communicate out to parents, give you plenty of time to get online and enroll. Provide any rationale and reason that you might have for wanting an inter-district transfer request approved or an out-of-district transfer request approved. A thought that came up too is that when you apply for an intra-district or out-of-district, you put your first preference, your second preference, and your third preference. And so that was a suggestion that came up, I think maybe from Country Meadow or through the discussions of some of the feedback that we've been receiving. So that was a great idea, something that we hadn't thought of. That's something that we plan to add on the enrollment process. We do stay very mindful of free reduced lunch percentages. The federal government does, they look at that as well. They really want you to try to stay within 15%, I think is the target that we tend to hear about. But again, we're not sure we're going to be able to get those as balanced as what we would like to. Special ed programs are something, Waterloo has a functional skills program, and those students are placed based on a case conference decision on what's best for that student. And so students in the functional skills program may not be affected at all because it's a case conference decision. And if the case conference decides that the student needs to go back to their home school or they're dismissed from functional, whatever that might look like, that's a case conference decision. At Country Meadow, there's an early intervention program. It's kind of like preschool. And again, those are case conference decisions. Those are legally binding special education IEPs, individual education plans, that we honor, and so it will not affect those programs. Again, student transfers, I wish I could provide you a list right now, because I think many of you want to see that order of priority. We will have those. So if you have specific questions about the types of things we're considering besides child care, or maybe you really like J.R. Watson because of their branding, their International Baccalaureate branding, or you really love Country Meadow because of the Leader in Me program that they have there, that would be on the list as something that you would choose possibly as a reason why you'd like to have an inter-district transfer request approved. And of course, our inter-district and out-of-district transfer requests are based on a couple different things. One, do we have room? Is there space available? The first students that will get priority are the students that live within the attendance zone of each school. And after that, inter-district, out-of-district will be considered. So it comes down to, again, the whole class size issue. If I just approved everything and the numbers stayed where they needed to be, then hey, I'm all about approving everything. But I have to be mindful of the class sizes because we have an opportunity to create balance and really get things in a much better place from a resource perspective. So, student transfer, the interdistrict and out of district, we'll be very mindful of if we have room in the grade level in school, and then is the student in good standing? Does the student have a good attendance record? Now, that's going to be one thing that I really take a hard look at. If a parent is requesting an interdistrict transfer, and they were an interdistrict transfer this year, but they missed 35 days of school, I'm probably not going to approve that interdistrict transfer because transportation probably was the biggest reason why that student didn't attend school as much as they needed to. So living in the attendance zone where they live, there's a bus available. And they can be picked up, dropped off each day by school transportation. So those are two factors that will be taken into consideration when approving interdistrict and out of district. Is there room at the grade level and in the school? And how's the attendance? How's the attendance? We want to make sure kids are in school when they need to be. Timelines. I'll give the board an update in February. We have a school board meeting every month. Our school board meetings are the third Tuesday of each month. But be sure to check the paper because sometimes that changes for different reasons, okay? We normally have them out at central office, which is located at 3326 County Road 427 in Waterloo. It's right across this driveway from the middle school, right by Lee Nagel's chiropractic service. So February, I see it as kind of a check-in point with the school board to kind of let them know how the process is going, kind of feed them, fill them in on the community meetings we've had, the feedback we've received, talk about interdistrict, out of district transfers, things of that nature. And then I would be looking to take a proposal to the school board for their approval, for their consideration for approval in March. Okay, so that kind of, things are going to happen pretty quickly here. So you're here, and that's good because you're getting information that's timely and relevant. The transition process, we've already started talking and planning for, so those students who are going to be moving schools, we have to make sure that we do everything in our power to make sure it's as smooth a transition as possible. So working with the principals of each of the buildings and their teachers and their parents, providing opportunities to visit those schools and visit those classrooms and visit those teachers that they'll have that following year. That'll happen through the spring and through the summer to make that transition as smooth as it possibly can be. Then, of course, transportation. That's always something moving forward. We're always thinking about transportation and how we can better utilize transportation in a more efficient way because it equals money. If we can save money in transportation, that money ends up back in our general fund or rainy day fund where we can use it to help other aspects in the district. I'm sure there's much more. Locations where you can look at the information we've discussed this evening, along with everything else. The maps were updated from the first time the information went out, so if you haven't checked the maps and you're kind of curious about the details of the map, we put higher resolution maps on, and so you can kind of drill down deeper. You can see the road names and things like that. And there are maybe there's some discrepancies that when you look at it, you might be, well, where's that supposed to be? Give us a call. Send us an email. We'll try to explain the best we can based on the maps that Jerry sent us, kind of where you're at. And then lastly, all right. So this I talked a lot, so said a lot. Didn't keep all of you awake, apparently. Questions, feedback? There's no dumb questions. No. Let's hear what you have. Yes, sir.
I appreciate you coming and doing this. It's helpful to hear some things, take some questions. Would I be wrong in asking a question when the concern that maybe many people have is they don't want to change? Everybody likes the district that they're currently in. That's the biggest thing. Not necessarily at one school better than another,
right.
but that they're they're in the district, that one school, they like that school. I mean, obviously, you're
Fair
gonna
to
have
say.
from time to time people that don't like a school and they move district, interdistrict for certain reasons, but that's few and far between. But is that the greater concern that most of the parents have said so far?
I would say based on the fact that many of the questions I get are, what's the process for interdistrict and out-of-district transfer requests and applications, how that's gonna work, I think lends itself to the point you're making. Which isn't, I mean, that's not surprising. I don't think any of us that thought about redistricting, I mean, I have 3 children, and I know this would have been, my children are, 2 are graduated, one's a senior, so I don't know what it feels like to be a parent thinking about this, but I know it would cause a lot of anxiety. I think it would cause some fear, frustration. I'd want answers. I'd want to know why. But yeah, I would say that the majority of concerns relate back to what you just stated.
We're all comfortable, for
Yeah.
the most part, where we're at.
Yeah, and as much as I
I think
consider,
that's the concern that maybe some people have is,
Yeah.
what will it be like at the other school?
and I can tell you things are going to be great, and they're going to be fine. And McKinney's awesome, and Watson's awesome, and Waterloo's awesome, and Country Meadow's awesome. I mean, it's scary to think about the change, and I get it. I do know this, I do believe this, and being in the elementary for 5 years, students are so resilient. And the younger something like this it happens, the easier it is for them to adjust to it. It's probably harder for us as parents to be able to adjust to it. And I think the older the students are, it would be harder to adjust. They're resilient. And I think they'll surprise you. I think they'll make, and again, I'm looking at 2 weeks into next school year, when I think 99.9% of any issues that might have been there are gone. Because, wow, we have a great teacher, love this building, love the school, I mean, and they fit in and they make new friends, and they'll all come together again at the middle school in 6th grade. Other questions? Appreciate your perspective. Yes?
I have a daughter that's in 4th grade, she'll be 5th grade next year. How will that affect her, because she's in her district?
So 4th graders, and if you've read the FAQ, we look to grandfather 4th grade students because with just 1 year remaining in elementary, we didn't feel, change their school for 1 year and then they change their school again for middle school. So we grandfathered them in, but it's parents' responsibility for transportation. I will say this for transportation. Our transportation department is wonderful. And so and we have some parents who currently do this. Transportation if you have to provide your own transportation, it's not necessarily transportation to the school. If there's a pickup point for that school somewhere between you and that school, our transportation department has been very willing to work with parents. Now, most parents arrange it, they drop off right at the door at the school, and that certainly is the best case scenario. But we want to work with parents too, to do what's best for the students. So those are some things that have been done. The question came up about 4th grade students who had siblings. So you have a grandfathered 4th grader, that seems weird to say grandfathered 4th grader, who's a 5th grader, and they have 2 younger siblings in 1st and 2nd grade. So what about them? Those, again, that's one of those priorities. Okay, where does that land? Is that more important than childcare? What should be considered first? So that's what we're trying to decide, what makes the most sense, and to know just exactly how many students that's affected. So for us to know and identify the exact students that are affected by all of this too. You're welcome. Other questions, comments? Yes?
I'm just curious how long this has been planned. I have 2 kids, one's in kindergarten, and this was not talked about. Both my kids are interdistrict transfers, so why agree for him to be a transfer this year for kindergarten, knowing that he may potentially have to switch schools for 1st grade?
I would tell you that conversations, I would say going on, maybe in the last 2 years, we've had conversations where a lot of different options, from making additional cuts, closing an elementary school, redistricting. I mean, a lot of different things have been discussed or looked at. And given all those scenarios, we felt like redistricting was the best option at this time. And hopefully never have to do it again. Never want to have to do it again. Other questions? Yes.
I have a second grader here, and you have 18 to 31 students, and you're saying possibly anywhere from kindergarten to fourth grade. On her class, I'm kind of confused on how you're getting those numbers, because she has first graders and second graders in her class. And she's got 24 total, but there's how many first graders in her class and how many second
Right.
graders where you're getting your numbers?
We have multi-age classrooms in 2 of our schools, Country Meadow and Waterloo. Will there be multi-age classrooms after this process? I can't tell you yes or no. I will tell you that the teachers that teach in the multi-age classrooms do a phenomenal job. They're wonderful, but I will tell you it's an added burden on them to have 2 different grade levels in one classroom. They do a great job, and the data supports the fact that even though they have multi-age classrooms, their data looks just as good as many of the other teachers that just have a single grade. So they do.
What's the purpose behind that? I mean, is it because of teacher cuts?
It's because of resources that we don't have available, because adding another teacher or 2 teachers may sound like a perfect scenario, or having a classroom size of 15 in every classroom just isn't feasible based on current budget and what we have in education for funding. Good question. Other questions or comments, concerns? We do
So are you
have-
saying if you add more students to Waterloo, that you'll get more teachers?
It's potential that we may have some shift. Of course, if we get more out-of-district transfer students in, or more people just move into DeKalb Central Schools, we will add, and we have added more teachers as we needed to in the elementaries. If we have students, if we have shifting in population, you know, teachers are a little bit stressed about this too, because there may be some teachers who have to shift from a building that they love and have been teaching in for years, and we might have to make a decision that a teacher needs to move from one building to another because we now have more students and we're able to balance things out more. But in the long run, I think any teacher that you would ask understands why we're doing this and would, you know, maybe not want to leave a building that they're teaching in, but would do it for the kids. And I don't think we'll have a problem with that.
Okay, I do have another question.
Sure.
We're part, when we talk about option A,
Yes.
we're part of this Auburn area that's getting shifted to Waterloo.
Okay.
We bought a house in Auburn.
You have an Auburn address, right?
We did our research on the school systems. We really wanted to be a part of the Auburn school systems. To have an Auburn address and then be a part of Waterloo School doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. And I'm not putting any school down, but according to what we have seen, there are some reasons why we chose Auburn. What I'm not understanding is when you flip it over to option B, you have added 1 square here to Waterloo, and that suffices. When you flip it over here, you still have the square, but now you've added this portion. But if this works, why doesn't, do you understand what I'm saying?
Great question. What I would encourage you to do, because you need the numbers behind it. And again, I'm not talented enough to know where lines should be drawn, so that's why we relied on someone that does it for a living. So when the given demographics did that for us, they provided the numbers behind it. So we sent them information. We didn't send them student names, but we let them know addresses of where our students live so that they could geocode, so that when they would redraw the lines, they would know what shifting would take place.
Right.
So on the website, if you, and I can't remember exactly what it's named, but there's a presentation that Mr. McGibbon made on January 17th. And the information, the tables, and the numbers that show the different, what happened, like if option A happens, here's what happens to enrollment at Country Meadow, Waterloo, McKinney, Watson. And here's what happens with option B. The wild card to all of that then would be how interdistrict and out-of-district plays into it, if that makes sense.
Okay, I'm just talking without adding interdistrict and all of that. If, I guess, I'm more concerned about I'm concerned about where my kids go to school, but I'm also concerned about where we live and what that does
Sure.
to our neighborhood. The idea of trying to sell an Auburn home with a Waterloo district, what that does for us as a family. But if people purchase an Auburn home because they want Auburn schools, and this one works just by adding the one square, I guess I just really don't understand why we're taking Auburn kids to Waterloo in this idea.
I think I understand what you're saying. I would tell you that we're DeKalb Central kids, and so I don't tend to look at it from we have Auburn kids and Waterloo kids and Ashley kids. We're DeKalb Central School. We have 4 excellent schools. We have great staffs. I've heard that that's feedback that I've received from others. I've had people communicate that they're worried about their property values because of the concern that you're bringing up. Again, I'm not an expert in how to create balance for enrollment and for socioeconomic. These are 2 options that Jerry put forth to us, and so we're doing our due diligence to make sure that we're talking to community and receiving feedback like you're talking about. Option A is an option, option B is an option, and we're just trying to explore both of those. And some version of A or B is something that we will probably end up with and take to the board for consideration. I appreciate your feedback. I think I understand your concern. And I would just reiterate that we are DeKalb Central Schools, and all of our schools do a wonderful job. I'm proud of all of them. So to me, it's not an Auburn thing, a St. Joe thing, a Corona thing. We're all DeKalb Central. Other questions? Yes.
I have a question on option B. It seems like there's a lot of flip-flopping between Watson and McKinney in option B, and it impacts a lot of families. I would be curious to know what the net impact is between Watson and McKinney, because it seems like it's almost a wash, but you're impacting a great number of families.
Right. Good question. We'll know that. We'll know more of that when you take into account the interdistrict and out-of-district. And I'll reference back to the January on the website. You can see kind of the numbers behind just how many students are from.
Is that file, I know which file you're talking about, and it would say like McKinney, and then McKinney Watson.
Yes.
So that's the number of kids that would be moving, correct?
It's the number of, I want to make sure I'm not misspeaking.
It's the one with the table,
Yeah,
and it'll say option, it's on the table, and it'll say each elementary school, and it'll say option A, option B, and then it shows what enrollment would be.
Oh, okay.
So it's a little different from, it's a different slide than the one you're
Okay.
talking about.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just have a comment.
oh, sure.
I don't know all the things that you offer as far as transportation. On my road, there's like 5 to 6 buses every day that come up and down the road. And I think that somehow needs to be.
Yeah, I think back when we were all in school, when we think of bus transportation, you might have thought of, buses in the morning and buses in the afternoon. Education has changed greatly.
That's why I say I don't know what is offered with these buses or transporting back and forth to, but just on my road alone, there's 5 or 6 different buses a day.
Some of that might be alleviated through some of the more efficient use of transportation, but I can tell you that students come to us with a lot of different needs, and so not every student that's a DeKalb Central student attends a DeKalb Central school. So we are part of what's called the Northeast Indiana Special Education Cooperative, which is 13 school corporations throughout Northeast Indiana. And so we partner with essentially DeKalb Eastern and Garrett. We have some of their students here. We try to maximize resources for the benefit of kids. But we have kids who come to school for 2 hours. We have some kids who spend half a day with us. We have students who spend the afternoon with us, the morning with us. We have vocational students who are bused to Kindleville for many different vocational offerings. Our preschool students are bused. They have a preschool full day is within the elementary full day, so they're like 8:30 to 1:30. So when the elementary and secondary routes are finished, then we've got buses transporting preschoolers in, and then they're busing those preschoolers home before they do the afternoon routes. So Steve Snyder and I think others, we've been involved in conversations where it's like, transportation is just unbelievable, the things that we do, and we do it because the kids need to be a certain place at a certain time where they can only spend a certain amount of time in an environment, so. But I appreciate your point. Yeah. Any other, yes?
So, one thing I love about our school district is having choice, and we do have 4 brandings in our elementaries, and I've had the privilege of viewing all 4 brandings and having in mind my daughter who's gonna be in kindergarten next year. So one of my big concerns is that we're taking away that choice, a little bit of that choice now. And are we gonna continue branding the 4 schools?
Yes.
But so I guess I kind of wonder, if we don't have a choice of which school I wanna put her in, because I know her, and which one would be the best fit for her, is it fair?
Great question.
Or like, what's the purpose now? Because it's not, we're not marketing it anymore.
Yes, fairness would be through the eyes of the person asking the question, based on your scenario and your situation that you're faced with right now. So, thinking about, one, we will still provide choice. The brandings at each of our elementary schools are kind of the flavorings that, you know, each student is getting a well-rounded education. That's Steve Teeters talking, and I think I can say we have a wonderful elementary schools. So the brandings are that little flavor. And so whether it's Leader in Me at Country Meadow, whether it's the Reading Writing Project at McKinney Harrison Elementary, their partnership with Columbia University, whether it's the International Baccalaureate at J.R. Watson, or the New Tech Network and Project-Based Learning here at Waterloo Elementary, those are all flavors that we have available, and the inter-district and out-of-district transfer request will include that as an option. And we still want to provide that as a choice for our parents if we have room in those schools and at those grade levels. So, I don't know, fair, I don't know how to define that in this situation. A lot of people are looking at me right now saying, well, this isn't fair because you're moving my cheese and I don't like to move my cheese move. Those of you who have read that book. And I get that. I appreciate your thoughts and questions.
I have a question. Will out-of-district transfers take priority over inter-district transfers, or will there be a?
The only situation where an out-of-district transfer would take priority is if they're a staff member of the Cal Central Schools. I am giving preference to staff members' children. I just think that's the appropriate thing to do, and the right thing to do.
But if there's not room at the school they choose, just like if there wasn't room for my kid, there isn't room for somebody from out of district.
Correct. I will consider inter-district transfer requests before I consider out of district. Our students that live within our boundaries, we serve first.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Oh, if you are accepted as an inter-district student transfer, do you have to reapply every year? Are you in for the rest of your time at that elementary school?
Great question. And we've talked about this internally. Our goal is to have it be a one-time approval as long as your student stays in good standing. You have a good attendance record. You know, we do see a lot of inter-district transfer requests that have been approved in the past, and then we have terrible attendance.
Right.
And it's because transportation isn't provided, and someone's having a hard time getting someone to school. You know, that impacts the student. So, if the attendance would be the reason why something would change.
Okay.
But we're wanting to go through this process one time, and once approved, you're approved.
One of the slides you had up there was, and we were talking about the different criteria of the number of students and then also the percentage of free and reduced lunches.
Sure.
If you could pull that up.
Not for memory?
No. I have enough going on in the day. I'm glad you included the parentheses there on the Waterloo, includes 96 pre-K. I'm just wondering whether, because of the funding that you do have through some foundations or private funds and so forth, whether that data, at least the secondary number, might be a little bit skewed to a higher amount because of that, and whether when you distribute the 4 classes or how many classes among the 4 schools, whether that number might be significantly changed one way or the other.
Sherry, I'm going to call on you. Sherry Chrisbridge is our preschool director here at Waterloo Elementary. She just wanted to remain anonymous. I'm calling on her. Do these families, they fill out?
They fill out the forms, but it is paid for, it's inclusive in their fees, so they do not pay for breakfast or lunch.
What I can't answer is whether or not that data somehow finds its way
That I don't know.
on the DOE's website, and it includes those students as part of that percentage.
The only reason I ask is, because that might significantly change that number.
Sure.
If they're included, because that's basically a third of the number of students in there, and I mean, maybe it would bring that number significantly down if it was, those preschool students are distributed among wherever their closest elementary is and so forth.
And these 96 kiddos will be moving on to some will stay right here at Waterloo, and others, because they do come from all 4 of the elementary schools.
So I would just, when you said you had a concern about what that secondary number, and that's not the primary concern, but it might be lower than what the 66.9 is.
Yeah, Steve, that's something to check into, but I believe that less than half of those kids are free and reduced as far as lunch and breakfast are concerned. So that would indicate the percentage of those 96 is much less than the 66.9. But we'll check into it for sure.
I have a question too. We got a letter the other day that only free or reduced lunches got free breakfast. Doesn't every child in Waterloo get free breakfast?
Right now, I believe they do.
Yes.
Yes. Correct.
If a school is above a certain percentage on that scale, it allows the school to serve them all breakfast, the entire school. And it's covered through state funding. That's why the whole school gets breakfast, is because we're at a certain percentage of the school.
We're available, so we're here. So if there's one individual, again, Tim Haynes, our school board rep, is here tonight. Sorry to point that out. Full disclosure, we're all here, and we're here to listen. If you have individual questions, and some of you were here for Monday's presentation, and again, the information I'm sharing is what we have up to date. If information was shared differently or something changed in my presentation, please let me know. We are updating information as we get it, so I would suspect that on Monday at Watson, some of the information will have changed. I'm trying to keep things updated as I go, and I would just encourage parents to access the website and continue to scrutinize and provide feedback and ideas, suggestions as we move forward. We're here to serve, and if you have questions, let us know. We're here. Yes, sir.
So basically, until the March meeting and the map is truly approved, there's no reason to put in a transfer request?
Actually, it won't, correct. The online enrollment process won't open until we have an approved.
Right, because one of them says, yes, we're moving, and the other one says,
Correct.
no, we're not.
Correct. And we will communicate out when the online, our IT department's not real happy with me because they have to go into our online enrollment system, and they'll have to make all the changes based on what gets approved.
Okay.
So they'll need a little bit of time to do that, but they're kind of waiting at the ready. As soon as we have it ready to go, we'll communicate that out and put a deadline for kind of that first wave of what's going to get approved. Thank you for coming tonight. I appreciate it. One other question? Yeah, one last question.
So when you're making this decision between option A and option B, is there a criteria that you're weighting higher than the others, like balancing the classroom size? And then who makes that decision between A and B, and when will that decision be made?
We're weighing
Okay.
we're weighing all pieces of information. I would tell you that I will be taking a recommendation to the school board for their consideration. And I would ask for them to approve my recommendation. And that would be at the March board meeting. But again, we're early in the process, and we're just trying to take in all the information we can and make the best, whether it's option A or B or some version thereof, or some more version of that. It's looking at the totality of what we're trying to gain. So to say that it's any one piece of information, I don't think I'd be accurate in telling you that. I think it's looking at everything and making the decision based on what we feel like is going to benefit the district as a whole and benefit us moving forward as well as a district. Opportunities for growth, become more efficient at what we're doing. We're fortunate that we have 4 schools that are already in place that do great things. So that's kind of a, don't have to worry about that. It's just all those other pieces, if that makes sense. Yes, Mr. Haynes.
Since you put me on the spot.
Yes, sir.
One of the easiest answers to that is we're trying to look at what's going to be the least effective to kids, the number of kids too. And that's kind of one of the focus. How can we accomplish what we have to affect the least number of kids? But 2 years ago when we started looking at this, and I wish you all could hear some of the stories Jerry tells. When we talked about maybe having to close the school, I mean, I didn't want to hear that because to go through that, it's a tough decision, and I'm really happy with the options we have now compared to some of the discussions we had previous on some of the options we had to look at. And part of it's because things have leveled off. Being a rural school is hard, and Jerry will tell you that, because you have the country areas that kids graduate and nobody moves in to fill those spots. The city ones will kind of turn over and keep evolving. And being as rural as DeKalb Central is, that's one of the challenges. But, to say we never have to do it again, I think sometimes we let things go too long. Maybe every 10 years we need to reevaluate things. And Jerry always says, unless you bring industry in, and the challenge is families are getting smaller. And it's interesting to hear some of his information, but like I said, it's not anything we're taking lightly, but, these options we're looking at are a lot better than 2 years ago when we first started having some of the discussion, and it was mentioned we might have to close the school. So I'm glad we aren't having to do that.
Thanks, Tim.
I don't know what the name of it was, but when one of the Auburn elementary schools got a higher rating or whatever, every one of the schools had a choice to send their child to the school. How many years ago was that? But is that ever going to happen again? Is that going to be something that weighs something? Is that?
It's going back to my time at Watson when the choice, and that was something that was governed by.
Is that even going to be a thing,
Not that I'm aware of. I mean, we want to make things as fluid as possible, give parents options and choices. We have to go through this process to get where we need to be. And so there's going to be some struggle in that, and we'll just be here to support. Yeah. I don't think if we were a failing district or a failing school, all 4 of our schools, elementary schools, were Bs. That's a rating that we get from the state. I'll be honest with you, I don't put a lot into it because it really focuses on I-STEP and really not much else, and I think we do a lot more than just I-STEP in our schools, so I don't put a lot of weight in it, and I don't talk about letter grades that much, and it didn't matter what we were A's, but all 4 of our elementary, they're all B's. They're very, very similar. You can go on websites online and you can look at schooldigger.com and greatschools.org, and you can find all these different ratings for schools, and they'll put a rating out of 10. And sometimes that just becomes a popularity contest where a motivated whoever from a community encourages people to go on and give high ratings to a school, because that all goes into some factoring system, and then they end up having a very high rating. I don't put a lot of stock in those types of things. I think you learn more about a school by just being there, by having a child there, by visiting there, by walking through the door. You get a feel. There's an atmosphere. It's a feeling you get when you walk in our schools, and I firmly believe that. So I'm rambling now and you're tired. So I appreciate your time and we're available, so reach out to us or see us before you leave. Thank you.